"Right away, Your Highness," the first guard went to work pulling out a key. My head stayed in its strange position as I heard the sound of keys clanking against one another, and then one sliding into the lock. The prince looked at me warily as I tried to stand, and then the sweet smell of fresh air pulsed through me, giving me all the motivation I needed. I pulled myself out of the guard's arms and ran like a drunk into the garden. I was staggering quite a bit, but I didn't care if I looked less than graceful. I just needed to be outside. I let myself feel the warm air on my skin, the grass beneath my toes. Somehow, even things in nature seemed to be bred into something extravagant here. I meant to go all the way into the trees, but my legs only carried me so far. I collapsed in front of a small stone bench and sat there, my fine green nightgown in the dirt, and my head resting in my arms on the seat. My body didn't have the energy to sob, so the tears that came were quiet. Still, they took all my focus. How did I get here? How had I let this happen? What would become of me? Would I ever get back any piece of the life I'd had before this? I just didn't know, and there wasn't a damn thing I could do about it. I was so consumed with my thoughts that I didn't realize I wasn't alone until Prince Maxim spoke. "Are you all right, my dear?" he asked me. "I am not your dear." I looked up to glare at him. There would be no mistaking the disgust in my tone or eyes. "What have I done to offend you? Did I not just give you the very thing you asked for?" He was genuinely confused by my response. I suppose he expected us to adore him and thank our lucky stars for his existence. I stared him down without fear, though the effect was probably weakened by my tear-stained cheeks. "Excuse me, dear, are you going to keep crying?" he asked, sounding very put out by the thought. "Don't call me that. I am no more dear to you than the 34 other strangers you have here in your cage." He walked closer, not seeming at all offended by my loose speech. He just looked thoughtful. It was an interesting expression on his face. His walk was graceful for a boy, and he looked incredibly comfortable as he paced around me. My bravery melted a little in the face of how awkward this was. He was fully dressed in his sharp suit, and I was cowering and half naked. As if his rank didn't threaten me enough, his demeanor did. He must have had plenty of experience dealing with unhappy people. He was exceptionally calm as he answered. "That is an unfair statement. You are all dear to me. It is simply a matter of discovering who shall be the dearest." "Did you really just use the word 'shall'?" He chuckled. "I'm afraid I did. Forgive me, it's a product of my education." "Education," I muttered, rolling my eyes. "Ridiculous." "I'm sorry?" he asked. "It's ridiculous," I yelled, regaining some of my courage. "What is?" "This contest, this whole thing. Haven't you ever loved anyone at all? Is this how you want to pick a wife? Are you really so shallow?" I shifted on the ground a little to make things easier for me. He sat on the bench so I wouldn't have to twist. I was too upset to be thankful. "I can see how I would appear that way, how this whole thing could seem like it's nothing more than cheap entertainment. But in my world, I'm very guarded. I don't meet very many women, and the ones I do are daughters of diplomats, and we usually have very little to discuss, and that's when we manage to speak the same language." Maxim seemed to think that was a joke, and he laughed lightly. I wasn't amused. He cleared his throat. "Circumstances what they are, I haven't had the opportunity to fall in love. Have you?" "Yes," I said matter-of-factly. As soon as the word came out, I wished I could steal it back. That was a private thing, none of his business. "Then you have been quite lucky." He sounded jealous. Imagine that. The one thing I could hold over the head of the Prince of Ilia, the very thing I was here to forget. My mother and father were married this way and are quite happy. I hope to find happiness too, to find a woman that all of Ilia can love, someone to be my companion and to help entertain the leaders of other nations, someone who will befriend my friends and be my confidant. I'm ready to find my wife. Something in his voice struck me. There wasn't a trace of sarcasm. This thing that seemed like little more than a game show to me was his only chance for happiness. He couldn't try with a second round of girls. Well, maybe he could, but how embarrassing. He was so desperate, so hopeful. I felt my distaste for him lessen marginally. Do you really feel like this is a cage? His eyes were full of compassion. Yes, I do. My voice came out quiet. I quickly added, Your Majesty. I've felt that way more than once myself, but you must admit it is a very beautiful cage. For you, fill your beautiful cage with 34 other men, all fighting over the same thing. See how nice it is then. He raised his eyebrows. Have there really been arguments over me? Don't you all realize that I'm the one doing the choosing? Actually, that was unfair. They're fighting over two things. Some fight for you, others fight for the crown. And they all think they've already figured out what to say and do so that your choice will be obvious. Ah, yes, the man or the crown. I'm afraid some cannot tell the difference. He shook his head. Good luck there, I said dryly. It was quiet for a moment in the wake of my sarcasm. I looked up at him out of the corner of my eye, waiting for him to speak. He gazed at an unfixed point in the grass, concern marking his face. It seemed this thought had been plaguing him. He took a breath and turned back to me. Which do you fight for? Actually, I'm here by mistake. Mistake? Yes, well, sort of. Well, it's a long story, and now I'm here, and I'm not fighting. My plan is to enjoy the food until you kick me out. He laughed out loud at that, actually doubling over and slapping his knee. It was a bizarre mix of rigidity and calm. What are you? He asked. I'm sorry? A 2? 3? Wasn't he paying attention at all? 5. Ah, yes. Then food would probably be a good motivation to stay. He laughed again. I'm sorry, I can't read your pin in the dark. I'm America. Well, that's perfect. Maxon looked off into the night and smiled at nothing in particular. Something in all of this was amusing to him. America, my dear, I do hope you find something in this cage worth fighting for. After all this, I can only imagine what it would be like to see you actually try. He came down from the bench to crouch beside me. He was too close. I couldn't think right. Maybe I was a little starstruck or still feeling shaky from my crying episode. Either way, I was too shocked to protest when he took my hand. If it would make you happy, I could let the staff know you prefer the garden. Then you can come out here at night without being manhandled by the guard. I would prefer if you had one nearby, though. I wanted that. Freedom of any kind sounded heavenly, but he needed to be absolutely sure of my feelings. I don't think I want anything from you. I pulled my fingers loose from his grip. He was a little taken aback and hurt. As you wish. I felt more regret. Just because I didn't like the guy didn't mean I wanted to hurt him. Will you be heading inside soon? Yes, I breathed, looking at the ground. Then I'll leave you with your thoughts. There will be a guard near the door waiting for you. Thank you, Your Majesty. I shook my head. How many times had I addressed him wrongly in this conversation? Dear America, will you do me a favor? He took my hand again. He was persistent. I squinted at him, not sure of what to say. Maybe. His smile returned. Don't mention this to the others. Technically, I'm not supposed to meet you until tomorrow, and I don't want anyone getting upset. Though I wouldn't call you yelling at me anything close to a romantic tryst, would you? It was my turn to smile. Not at all. I took a deep breath. I won't tell. Thank you. He took the hand he was holding and lowered his lips to it. Then he pulled away, and he gently placed my hand in my lap. Good night. I looked at the warm spot in my hand, stunned for a moment. Then I turned to watch Maxon as he walked away, giving me the privacy I wanted all day. In the morning, I woke not to the sound of the maids coming in, though they had, or my bath being drawn, though it was. I woke to the light coming through my window as Anne gently pulled back the rich heavy curtains. She hummed a quiet song to herself, absolutely happy with her task. I wasn't ready to move. It had taken me a long time to come down from getting so worked up, and even more time to relax after I realized exactly what the conversation in the garden would mean for me. If I got a chance, I would apologize to Maxon. It would be a miracle if he let me get that far. Miss, are you awake? No, I moaned into the pillow. I hadn't had nearly enough sleep, and the bed was far too comfortable. But Anne, Mary, and Lucy laughed at my groan, which was enough to make me smile and decide to start moving. These girls would probably be the easiest for me to get along with in the palace. I wondered if they could become confidants of some kind, or if training and protocol would render them completely unable to even share a cup of tea with me. Though I was born a 5, I was covered in 3-ness now, and if they were maids, that made them all 6s. But that was fine with me. I did enjoy the company of 6s. I moved slowly into the monstrous bathroom, every step echoing against the vastness of tile and glass. In the long mirrors, I saw Lucy eyeing the dirt stains on my nightgown. Then Anne's careful eyes caught them, then Mary's. Thankfully, none of them asked any questions. Yesterday, I thought they had been prying with all their inquiries, but I was wrong. They were obviously overly concerned with my comfort. Questions about what I was doing outside my room, let alone the palace, would only be awkward. All they did was remove the gown with care and usher me toward the bath. I wasn't used to being naked around other people, not even Mom or May, but there seemed to be no way around it. These 3 would be dressing me for as long as I was here, so I would have to bear it until I left. I wondered what would happen to them when I was gone. Would they get assigned to other girls who would need more attention as the competition drew on? Did they already have other jobs in the palace that they were temporarily excused from? It seemed rude to ask what they used to do or imply that I was leaving soon, so I didn't. After my bath, Anne dried my hair, pulling half up with ribbons I'd brought from home. They were blue and just so happened to accent the flowers in one of the day dresses my maids had created for me, so that was what I wore. Mary did my makeup, which was just as light as the day before, and Lucy rubbed lotion into my arms and legs. There was an array of jewelry to choose from, but I asked for my box instead. There was a tiny necklace with a songbird on it that my dad had given me, and it was silver, so it matched my name pin. I did take a pair of earrings from the royal store, but they were probably the smallest ones in the collection. Anne, Mary, and Lucy looked me over and smiled at the results. I took that as a sign that I was decent enough to leave for breakfast. With bows and smiles, they all wished me well as I went to leave. Lucy's hands were trembling again. I went into the upstairs foyer where we had all met yesterday. I was the first one there, so I took a small sofa to wait for the rest. Slowly, others started to trickle in. I quickly noticed a theme. Every one of the girls looked phenomenal. They had their hair pulled up in intricate braids or curls away from their faces. The makeup was meticulously done, dresses pressed to perfection. I had probably chosen my plainest dress for the first day, and everyone else had something sparkly on it. I saw 2 girls walk into the foyer and realized that they were wearing almost the exact same dress. They both turned back around to change. Everyone wanted to stand out, and they all did it in their own ways, even me. Everyone here looked like a 1. I looked like a 5 in a nice dress. I thought it had taken me a long time to get ready, but it took the other girls much, much longer. Even when Sylvia came to escort us downstairs, we still had to wait for Celeste and Tiny, who, true to her name, had to have her dress taken in. Once we were all assembled, everyone started to move toward the stairs. There was a gilded mirror on the wall, and we all turned to take one last peek as we descended. I caught a glimpse of myself next to Marley and Tiny. I looked positively plain, but at least I looked like me, and that was a minor consolation.